dysfunction I put as a kind of a general thing. There's a few things that we'll talk about under sort of the disc dysfunction topic. So disc bulge is the first one. So does anybody know what a disc bulge is already? Or protrusion? Yes, go ahead.
Well, it's where a lot of times it's the annual
annulus.
Annulus coming out, and it could bulge posteriorly, laterally, anteriorly.
Yes, true. So this is a little example of that, right? They've given you a little example of a disc bulge. Disc bulge really refers to the annulus bulging, not the nucleus, okay? Nucleus is intact if all you have is a disc bulge, which is a good thing. And most commonly, the protrusion is posterior laterally. So that's just most common. It doesn't mean that it's always that way, and it could be either side. The reason that it happens that way is because of the posterior longitudinal ligament back here is just not very efficient, right, at that. It's sometimes not enough to hold that disc in place based on the amount of force we're putting on the disc. Local symptoms, you could have back pain. Local symptoms could be due to pressure on the ligaments or stretch. It could be pressure on those ligaments from the disc itself. It could be inflammation of the area. It could be muscle spasming. So that muscle spasming, I like to pause here for a second because muscle spasms cause a lot of pain. Somebody in a muscle spasm is hurting a lot in a severe muscle spasm. They can last for days, sometimes weeks in spasm. And that's that feeling when somebody comes in and says, I feel really heavy, like I got something heavy on my back, or I feel like I can't move, I feel stiff and stuck. A lot of times it's muscular spasming, and it may be because of a disc, something underneath. Sometimes it's really hard to assess, even when they're in that much spasm, what's happening. Sometimes you have to figure out how to get them out of spasm in order to even understand what's happening with their body, because they're just blocked. And that's our body's protective mechanism. So when something goes wrong, our body says, uh-oh, something's wrong, I'm just gonna hold so that nothing else bad happens to me. And I try to explain it to people that way. And then you're in a lot of pain, and a lot of times there's a lot of anxiety around that pain, and it actually, I think, makes that whole pain cycle worse. So getting somebody who's in spasm to relax through, and you'll see when we talk about the movements for disc bulge, some of them are actually directed at releasing muscle spasm, not really at the disc problem itself. So that's usually where we would start, is making sure there's no muscle spasming, and if there is, how do we get them out of spasm so that we can actually help them feel better and get a lot of that pain to go away. So, oops, sorry, there's one more. The radiation of the symptoms. So you can get radiation of symptoms. So if that disc, like on here, this disc is touching this nerve. So even from a disc bulge, you can get radiation of symptoms on that nerve root, from that nerve root. So if the nerves are really sensitive things, that's why I think we have that phrase, getting on my nerves, right? Nerves are super sensitive, so if something's touching or irritating the nerve, it can start radiating down. Typically with a disc issue that's a one-sided bulge, you're gonna have symptoms unilaterally, on the side of the irritation, right? On the side of the connection or the touching. Here are just a bunch of shots of what it might look like, right? Different scenarios. So there's sort of everything going okay. Here's another nucleus and annulus. There's where you're having some dysfunction. That red is showing where the pain is happening. And I think that's just more. And here, okay, here's where you can see the bulge out and hitting the nerve there, right?